This is a true story. June 1972. The deep Pacific. For the Robertson family, things took a very bad turn. Without warning, a pod of killer whales, nature's apex hunters, slammed into them. With the force of a wrecking ball, in 60 seconds, their boat was gone. 6 souls, one collapsing rubber raft, drifting through a liquid desert for 38 days of pure agony. With no radio and no hope of rescue, to survive, they had to become as cold as the sea itself, hunting the very sharks and turtles that circled them. But as the fresh water ran dry, they were forced into a gruesome, legendary battle against thirst that pushed the limits of human endurance. The Robertsons didn't just survive the ocean, they conquered it. Let's watch the full, harrowing journey now.
Their wooden boat, the Lucette, sailed across the blue Pacific Ocean. Dougal and his son Douglas watched the waves. Suddenly, there were 3 loud thuds. Crash! Huge killer whales had hit the boat. Water began to pour in fast. "The boat is sinking," Dougal shouted. They only had a few minutes. Lynn grabbed the emergency bags and water. She helped her son Neil climb over the side. The family jumped into a small rubber life raft just as the Lucette disappeared under the waves. The rubber raft was very small. Sandy and Robin huddled together. They watched their home sink into the deep, dark ocean. They were thousands of miles from land. They had very little food and only a little water. They were all alone. After many days, the rubber raft began to fall apart. It was leaking and sinking. Dougal and Robin knew they had to move. They carefully moved their supplies into their tiny wooden dinghy. It was called the Ednamere. It was only 9 feet long. The sun was very hot. Everyone was thirsty, but they had no fresh water left. Douglas and Neil found a clever way to help. They held up a plastic sheet when the clouds turned gray. When the rain fell, they caught every drop to drink. They were starving. They needed meat to stay strong. A large sea turtle swam near the boat. Dougal reached into the water. He grabbed the turtle by its flippers and pulled. Douglas grabbed his father's waist to keep him from falling in. The turtle provided food, but it also provided drink. Lynn gave Sandy some of the turtle's blood. It was salty and strange, but it had the moisture they needed to survive. They ate the raw meat and felt their strength slowly come back. One day, a giant shark appeared. It was longer than their tiny boat. The shark circled the Ednamere, bumping against the wood. Dougal stood up. He held a sharp spear made from a piece of wood. He was ready to protect his family. They decided to catch a smaller shark for food. It was a wild fight. The shark thrashed and splashed, trying to get away. Douglas and Robin gripped the shark's rough tail with all their might. They pulled the heavy fish into the boat. A massive storm hit the ocean. The waves grew as tall as houses. The wind roared around them. Lynn and Neil worked as fast as they could. They used buckets to throw the seawater out of the boat so they would not sink. On day 38, they saw a shape on the horizon. It was a ship. Dougal and Douglas knew this was their last chance. Dougal held a red flare high in the sky. Douglas waved a white cloth and screamed for help. "Over here!" The ship saw them. It was a fishing boat called the Dalmary. The sailors were amazed to find a family in such a tiny boat. A strong sailor reached down to help Dougal onto the big ship. After 38 days at sea, the Robertsons were safe.